Thanks, Ben. Well, with me here in the studio is Jessica Ground, UK Equities Fund Manager at Schroders. Jessica, really good to see you this morning. So we have the second woman to occupy number 10 in a quarter of a century after Margaret Thatcher. It's an exciting time for the UK. She's got a big task in front of her, though, doesn't she? Who is going to make up the cabinet? And I guess the first priority is who's going to be the Chancellor?
So interesting. She's got about 100 posts to fill, and, you know, this is her chance to return favours and to set her agenda out. I thought the interesting thing about yesterday is she was quite critical of the Treasury, and so by default George Osborne, saying that he hadn't done enough to solve productivity, which is obviously such a key thing for so many people and the growth of the country, and also implying that he hadn't perhaps done enough on infrastructure investing. So following that, I would be quite surprised if George stayed in the hot seat in the Treasury, and the speculation going that Philip Hammond would prefer that. And you know, I think the question mark is, does he get the other big job which it's rumoured he'd like, which is in the Foreign Office and with a focus on trade.
And how likely is it that she's going to include some of those very prominent Brexiteers around her table, Mr Johnson and Mr Gove, I'm thinking particularly?
I think Mr Gove probably more likely than Mr Johnson, who's probably seen more of a live wire in these. But I think, you know, she was a Remain campaigner, and she's going to want to be pretty clear that she said that Brexit will happen, and so she is going to want to give Brexit good weight in the cabinet. And I think those people like perhaps Liam Fox, who've supported her in this, should see good positions coming to them.
And in terms of her economic strategy going forward, as you say, she was pretty critical of some of Mr Osborne's strategies, hasn't she, at the past? She sort of criticised his focus on just two of our great regional cities, if you like, suggesting that she might want to develop more than just particularly London and Manchester, is what many people inferred by those comments. She also pledged to tackle predatory takeover powers on the part of some corporations out there, and also wanting to close the gap between executive pay and normal worker pay. Is the city worried at all by some of these comments?
I think actually much of what she sort of said is the city has been on a trajectory already. So if we just look at this issue of pay, we've seen big votes against massive CEO pay. Certainly, interestingly, in the US, we're going to see much more disclosure on CEO pay relative to average workers' pay. So I think that momentum is already underway. I think this M&A and protection for industries and looking for guarantees, again, that's sort of been on the table since Kraft taking over Cadbury, and a feeling there that promises were given that then weren't delivered, and a feeling that perhaps we need to be tougher. So I don't think those will be surprising. You know, I think there has been a feeling for some time that this issue of inequality needs to be looked at, and believe it or not, even in the city, that actually, for we as investors, we want sustainable business models. We want companies that are actually treating employees well. You know, we ourselves have been campaigning for the living wage and encouraging companies to adopt that. And I think it is right that we look at sort of how do all stakeholders, you know, the environment, customers, workers, benefit, and it can't just be CEOs paying and nothing for the rest of the country.
Yeah, and as you say, she was on the Remain camp, but she reiterated again, Brexit is Brexit, and let's crack on with it. Jessica, really good to talk to you. Jessica Ground there from Schroders. Big task ahead for Theresa May.
Absolutely. We'll keep you across all developments.